Hey gamers, this is Zarek over at GamR, and on today's video breakdown we're going to be taking a look at Final Fantasy 15, Metal Gear Solid 5, and The Evil Within. We didn't get a whole lot of new information regarding Final Fantasy 15 at this year's Tokyo Game Show, but we did get to see a glimpse of the combat and gameplay from the upcoming next-gen title. Much of this trailer is the same as what was shown at E3 this year, but what's here looks promising. These moments show what will hopefully be a very effective plot involving Noctis' relationship with his family's power, and particularly his father. The ability to evoke emotions is something this series has always thrived on, and this looks to be no exception. With a healthy mix of sci-fi and fantasy elements, Final Fantasy 15 looks to be aiming for where the series has always struck the strongest in this unique fusion of genres. The combat looks very different from what we've seen in Final Fantasy, even in more recent games. Turn-based combat looks to be a thing of the past, and while this may annoy purists, what the trailer is suggesting is an experience that really blends exciting cutscenes with intense gameplay. What we're also seeing here is something very important to the spirit of Final Fantasy. What separates this series from many other games is that the stories are rarely centered on one individual trying to save the world, but rather the forming of bonds between characters that's tested and strengthened throughout the narrative. What's great here is that even in these brief moments of gameplay, we're already seeing a strong relationship between friends.
That smell. Smells like blood.
Next up is Tango Gameworks' new title, The Evil Within. Published by Bethesda with legendary game director Shinji Mikami, who's worked on various Resident Evil titles, Devil May Cry, and Dino Crisis, this ambitious survival horror title is expected to release on current and next-gen consoles sometime next year. While we're not sure what is and isn't gameplay here, what we aren't seeing is a lot of gunplay and explosions, and for survival horror, that's a good thing. There definitely seems to be an emphasis on keeping to the shadows in order to stay alive, though I can't help but feel like a lot of us are simply going to run when we see what this game is waiting to kill us. Last but certainly not least is the heavily anticipated Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. This live gameplay demo from the Xbox One booth at the Tokyo Game Show is showing a very new side of Metal Gear. While there are some of the more obvious changes, such as the new weapon select system, the ability to drive cars, and more advanced CQC techniques, pay close attention to the camera in the footage. There's a considerably greater cinematic look to the gameplay. Hideo Kojima has commented that there won't be as many cutscenes in this title, and this may be how he's trying to capture that cinematic feel that's always been a staple of the series. Notice how the camera is very dynamic in its distance. Depending on how and where Snake moves and how he's moving, the angle and the distance changes. Also, when aiming, a lot more screen space is given to what is being aimed at as opposed to the back of Snake's head. A few things worth some criticism here is the returning presence of the tranquilizer gun and the ability to see patrol units through walls. Hopefully Kojima Productions will find a way to balance out the use of the tranquilizer gun, as this often becomes an easy way to incapacitate enemies and tends to make you ignore some of the other weaponry in the game. Seeing enemies through walls is also somewhat concerning for a stealth title. Understandably, you do need some kind of mechanism to replicate that sense that somebody may be around the corner, but what we're seeing in this demonstration is something that may indeed spoil the whole point of trying not to be seen. And that about wraps up this episode of Video Breakdowns. For news, reviews, and all things gaming, keep it right here at GamR.